be here today for Solutions in Partnerships. And part of that is because I have been lucky enough to be living actively, independently, because of people like you partnering with people like me who has a disability. I strongly believe in all of us having opportunities to take risks and accept challenges.
And it's these experiences that I've received through inclusive education, inclusive recreation, that has taught me perseverance, independence, and acceptance. And so I believe because of these opportunities, I've learned, how do you know unless you try? And I'm going to try the clicker. No. Let's try again. I just may need someone to partner with me in a solution to conquer this challenge.
You're not the only one who needs it.
Thank you. Thank you, Kishore. So, I was born a four-way amputee. They don't know why. It was just a fluke. My mom is cheeky enough to say, in more ways than one, being a fluke. And there weren't any drugs, there weren't any family friends or family or relatives or history. The limbs just didn't grow. So I was born this way, and that's certainly very different than someone that may acquire their disability later in life. But certainly it was because of inclusive opportunities, and if you would click for me, that helped me find my independence. I'm teaching in Uganda in this photograph, which actually resulted in my focuses of study. And now, because of these inclusive opportunities that I will share with you, you realize I have my focus of study. I also have my profession. So I was a camp director at the Easter Seals Society Camp for Children with Disabilities, as well as a director at the Ontario March of Dimes. And I went on to be a teacher. In this case, I'm teaching in a third world country, but I've also taught here in Canada, and also became a leadership consultant. So these are some trust building exercises, again in a third world country because it's a little more exciting, but I do group dynamics in Canada as well. So I think for me it all started when I was about 10 and I joined Easter Seals Camp for Children with Disabilities. And by teaching me to swim, I was able to gain some confidence and gain a skill that I could transfer. And swimming, I remember in grade 3 when my teacher approached my mom, and she was saying, I'm really concerned, maybe you want Tracy to stay home for the afternoon when we go swimming with the class. And my mom said, well, you know, maybe if I come, it will be all right. Tracy's a good swimmer. And I think the teacher thought that my mom was overestimating my abilities. And so, sure enough, my mom was the only mom that came to grade 3 swim class that was part of phys ed. And I was a better swimmer than all of the kids. And so there was the teacher said at the end of that first day, I don't think you need to be joining us anymore. So it's because of swimming that I had this skill that I could go on and learn to sail. And so sailing is probably where I started my lessons in perseverance. Because I could swim, the sailing school said that I could join. And I was this enthusiastic beginner, kind of like a teenager that wants to get their driver's license, and they are confident, I can do it, no problem, right? Because you don't know what you don't know. And I very quickly became the disillusioned learner along the way, because I spent most of my first summer falling out of the boat. Without my legs on and the boat heeling, it was a balancing act. So instead of receiving a sailing level of accomplishment at the end of the summer, they gave me a fish because I spent more time with the fish. So I did go on to learn to sail, and I volunteered, and I became an instructor, and then I eventually ran the sailing school where I hired the staff and created policies for the school called Independence Afloat Sailing School. And so that's where I started my lessons in perseverance. I furthered my lessons and times and moments where I was saying, "Oh me Jesus." It's funny that we have Keith here from Cape Breton. The expression "Oh me Jesus" comes from a run in Newfoundland, Corner Brook, and it's a ski run that's called OMJ, and it stands for "Oh me Jesus." And so this "Oh me Jesus" run is very steep, and when I started there on the Monday at a festival, I had a wipeout on my first turn, and a wipeout on my second turn, and a wipeout on my third turn, and all the way down this run, "Oh me Jesus," I completely wiped out. And so I skied every day, Monday to Friday in Corner Brook, and it was wonderful, and I loved it. And I loved the Cape Bretoners I met there too. And on the last day, I said to my instructor, "I really want to try that run one more time." And he says, okay, but we got to go in. I said, "No, I really want to try "Oh me Jesus." I want to see, how many wipeouts I can do it in, if I can do it in less wipeouts." And so we got to the bottom of the run, and we had to go in, and I was so angry at him. I'm like, "You said we could do "Oh me Jesus." And he said, "You did it." And I said, "No, we didn't." He said, "Yes, you did." And I had no idea, and that because I had practiced so much all week, that I was able to accomplish "Oh me Jesus." And I think it's through that perseverance and unstoppable practice that if all of you as people working with others that have disabilities or providing support mechanisms for people with disabilities, if you have perseverance, just when they're falling in the water all the time or they're falling down all the time, that doesn't mean that's going to be the constant continuous state. It just means it's the beginning. And please believe with perseverance that it's a worthwhile effort and passion, because wonderful results. I was bronze medalist at the Paris Sport Olympics in 2010 as a result of somebody persevering with my skiing. And so this is my niece, Maggie. She's 4 now. But the other lesson in life for me and for all of us here today is independence. I have a newfound respect for my mom and dad for giving me my independence. I could see, looking at my hands, why it would be so easy to just tie my shoelaces for me. Because in the next shot, I'm tying the shoelace for my niece on that chair on your left-hand side. And it's so easy for me to just go ahead and tie Maggie's shoelace than it is to sit back and let her tie her own shoelace. And I remember in kindergarten, again, my mom really wanted to set me up for success, and the school was really resistant to letting me come as a 4-way amputee. They wanted to send me, and remember, this is now 38 years ago, telling my age, but 38 years ago, so a little different. They really wanted me to go to the special school instead of the local community school. And so she really wanted to set me up for success, and she taught me everything that she could do. So the first day there, she picks me up from kindergarten, and the teacher says, "I'm really sorry, Tracy didn't get recess time." And my mom was all worried. She's she wasn't able to get ready. And she said, "No." She said, "One of the kids needed help with their shoelace, so Tracy tied it, and then all of the kids asked Tracy to tie their shoelace." So by the end of recess, there was no recess time left. So it was because of that wonderful independence and letting go of control that my mom provided me and allowed me to have some independence. And so in the next shot, this is me climbing in Thunder Bay and with an organization with Outward Bound. Some of you may know Outward Bound, and I worked for Outward Bound eventually. But the first time I went on an Outward Bound excursion, we were rappelling, and if you don't know, there's a safety line, but you pretty much control yourself and how you're shimmying down when you're rappelling. And I remember going over this cliff, and I couldn't see the person that had my safety line. And you can imagine that once I was over the cliff and just sort of dangling midair on the side of this cliff, that I sort of stopped in a state of shock. I'm like, holy cow, what am I doing? And looking around, and I stopped. And then I could hear the person shouting from the top of the cliff, Tracy, are you on the ground? I haven't got control over you anymore. And then so first I was scared, and then I was like so stoked, so excited, because I realized I'm in control. They weren't lowering me down for a nice, pleasurable, cool trip. I was in control. I was doing it. They facilitated it. They partnered with me for a solution, but they helped me conquer the challenge. And it was a wonderful experience. So I ask all of you, and although it's a strange request, is if you can let go of control a little. Partner with me, set me up for success, and then let me be independent and believe that I'm capable, and believe that the people that you're working with, the people that you're hiring, the policies that you're creating are enabling somebody to be independent. And so because of the confidence that I gained from my skiing and my sailing and my swimming, I went on to enjoy traveling. I taught in the United Kingdom with an organization called Operation Rally. And this is an art program in a special needs school in Birmingham, England. And I taught drama in Kingston, Jamaica. And I did leadership development for kids in Uganda. I sailed and crewed and eventually got hired to captain a tall ship in Holland and in the Eastern Atlantic and the Outer Hebrides. I went whitewater rafting at the front of the boat. No one else would sit there, but I was willing, in the Grand Canyon for 9 days. And that's Uganda. And those are the people that I went with. And then I also trekked in Nepal, and I'll be here a little bit. And so we have perseverance, we have enabling that independence by letting go of control, and then we also have acceptance and a little more about believing that everyone is capable. And so I learned that lesson, and it seems strange, a parallel between the jobs that all of you do and my experiences as a team in Nepal. While we were in Nepal, there was a lot of partnering for solutions and conquering challenges by working together and believing everyone is capable. And what got distinguished for me that was an absolute reality was in Nepal. And one day we had just finished crossing a river called the Modai Kola River, and it was a suspension bridge. And it was, 850 feet high in the air. There were planks missing. The ropes on either side, because my legs were off, were above my head. So I'm looking at nothing either side of me. My left arm can't reach the rope. So there's a rope up here. And so you can imagine after crossing this suspension bridge that my heart was going, And so the last thing I wanted to do was sit down and rest. I had so much adrenaline going that I wanted to keep going. So a lot of the group sat and took a rest, whereas I just kept going with the energy. And then I saw this big, massive hay bale walking along. There was no head, there were no arms, there were just these spindly legs underneath this hay bale coming along the path towards me. And then it just swung to the ground, practically sort of thrown there, and this spindly Nepalese man's just looking at me. And he speaks I was traveling with a student from a local Nepalese school who I was lucky could speak the local dialect as well as English, and he says to her in Nepalese, he says, if this one looks like that, and he means me without my arms or my legs, what does the rest of the group look like? And one of the Nepalese people said, oh, one of them doesn't have a head. It was so funny. And when I was in Nepal, I'm lucky enough, because of all of you, to have sensitivity awareness raising sessions. And I have technology that give me these supportive prosthetic legs. And I have life experiences that set me up very differently than someone in Nepal that's born with a disability. You know, the only person that really gets fed is the person that's bringing home food for other people. And if you're not able to valuably contribute, you pretty much die off. I didn't see a lot of people with disabilities. I saw a few amputee Nepalese porters that had lost their foot to frostbite, but they looked like they were dying off. They didn't look like they were going to live much longer themselves. And so if someone had a stereotype or belief that I wasn't able in Nepal, I would have totally understood, because they didn't see people being able. But this Nepalese porter that has grown up in this environment sees and lives and works with me trekking in Nepal, bringing school supplies through the mountains in the Annapurna region, and sees me doing this, and so very quickly realized, you know what, anything is possible. Tracy is capable. So he was able to make this joke about how ridiculous it was that one of them doesn't have a head, even though he had this environment. And so if anything is possible in Nepal, where people can be accepting, anything is possible, and acceptance is possible here. Absolutely. And so acceptance is that last piece. And so because of people like you partnering for solutions with people like me, I've been allowed to live actively. And thank you for those inclusive opportunities. This is the Mobility Cup. Well, I came 9th out of 24 boats last summer. And it's given me my source of independence. I started to learn to fly in 2010. And other sources of independence has been that teaching career in third world countries. And most recently I've been taking up scuba diving, and that was in Bonaire in February. And so because of, that's meant to be me all dramatic and appreciative of taking risks, and things may seem hard and challenging, but I encourage all of you to conquer those challenges and to partner for performance by persevering, by letting go of control so someone can experience independence, and by being accepting and fully on believe, even when it seems impossible, and accepting that person. And so to provide those risky opportunities, safe risks, but risky opportunities to experience that sense of confidence. So that I could live like all of you. These are my kids of my friends. That's my wonderful sister. Those are my wonderful dogs and brother-in-law. And next year I want to try bobsledding. So thank you for your role in me living independently and actively. Much appreciated.
Tracy, you once described a very interesting story about how they created scenes.
Yes.
Can you tell us that story?
Absolutely. I met a man at a self-expression conference, how to be more self-expressed, and he said, I'm going to get you skiing. And I'm thinking, sure, well thank you. And I never expected that he'd follow up, and he did follow up. And it turns out that he had had a legless mechanic, and that this mechanic wore his rubber Wellingtons backwards on his stumps, on his knees. And he was great, because he could pop underneath the vehicles, no problem, he was already down there. And so what he suggested was that we try men's ski boots backwards. And so we put on these big, gigantic size 12 men's ski boots backwards, and we expanded the ankle part, and jammed my thigh in there, and jumped on my shoulder to really jam me in these boots. And we used snow blades, which are double-sided, so that we could learn to ski. And so I started with men's ski boots backwards with the initial learning curve of disabled skiing. And now we've invented foot plates, but that's how it all started. Very creative solution that who would have thought?
Anyone else? Thank you very much, Tracy. Oh, great, Yolanda.
Would you say you're a bit of an adrenaline junkie?
I would say I'm an adrenaline junkie. Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that comes from learned. I think many people see me as extroverted and outgoing and ready to take on the world, though actually in kindergarten, I was very shy and I learned to talk very late in life. And so I think I'm very lucky that I was born disabled, because it taught me quickly that I needed to be able to reach out to people, to partner for solutions right from kindergarten. And I think that, and my mom doesn't ski, and my sister doesn't sail. There's no one in my family, none of my cousins, no one else that is an adrenaline junkie. So I do all of these great recreational pursuits and have this very fulfilling career because of having a disability. People invited me to sailing for people with disabilities or skiing for people with disabilities. And so if I didn't have a disability, I wouldn't have ever realized this adrenaline junkie side of me.
Can you just talk about your experience as a teacher and how students respond?
My experience as a teacher and how students respond. Do you know, one of my favorite stories is in this grade 1 classroom. And it was around Halloween, and we were teaching numbers 1 through 30, reinforcing, and the activity was to cut out a pumpkin and put a number on between 1 and 30. So I asked a student, could they hold the paper for me? And so one student held the paper, and then I took the scissors and I put the finger loop of the scissors on my elbow knob, and I had the top of the scissors in my finger and worked the scissors, obviously symbolically, with my 2 hands. And so then I demonstrated like a teacher does, this is the task, and then I sent them off to do their independent activity of cutting out their own pumpkin. Well, wouldn't you know that the kids, was so funny, the kids, they all picked up their paper, so they go to the front of the room to grab their paper that they're meant to grab, and they put it under their arm like I did. Like, you guys could hold it with your hand, but I carried the paper under my arm, so the kids carried the paper under their arm. And then they go back, and I didn't say, usually you organize setting the kids up in pairs, but I didn't organize it because it was an independent activity. Well, the kids self-organized themselves into pairs, and one held the paper, and the other one worked the scissors with 2 hands. And it was so phenomenal to see the kids, how much of an influence and how much of a role model we all are as educators. And I get goosebumps every time I remember that story. And I really miss teaching. I would love to go back to teaching, actually. I have a fulfilling career at Shoppers Drug Mart, and I did at Air Canada in leadership development. But the challenge for me is with, you often get in the door through occasional teaching. And so you need to be able to, and for me, accessibility being different every place, everywhere, it was a big challenge for me to develop those relationships through occasional teaching and to do that. And so I ended up, pardon? Did you say something? Oh, I can't, okay, sorry. Yeah, so I would love to teach again. And I love, and I conquered the challenge and found a path in Shoppers Drug Mart and in Air Canada in my past lives. But certainly please do keep me in mind if you're hiring a teacher.
You speak French?
Do I know? If I could only speak French. I don't speak it fluently. I did a 8-week French immersion program in Nova Scotia. I was telling Keith about it. And so it's sort of an Acadian French that I speak.
It's good French, Keith says. Anyone else? Well, I just want to say thank you very much, Tracy. I'm sure that you're an inspiration.
Do I have to do this? I think all of us can see that Tracy's an amazing woman in so many ways, and I don't know, it's a big challenge tomorrow. I'm going to have to get up and persevere and try and be creative and partner with others and be a part of a team. You've given us a lot to think about, and I really appreciate you coming here. Thank you so much.
Thank you.